it's kind of the fact that I'm doing this is pretty amazing. That my first 6 years of practice, I said vision therapy is voodoo, quackery. Only crazy people do this, and I wanted nothing to do with vision therapy. I had been running an optometry practice, and we have zero business training. And there was an ad came across that said, "Hey, we're going to be in Louisville. Optometrists, do you need help running your business?" And I'm going, "I do." So that's what I went over there, and I go, "I didn't know that. I didn't know that." I was taking all notes on this, and the doctor then said, "And you should also consider adding vision therapy to your practice." And I'm like, "No way, I'm not doing that." And I remember across, I think, put my pen down, and I literally was looking for exits to say, "Can I leave here without being a distraction?" And I realized I couldn't because there's only 10 people ish at the thing. So I go, okay, they'd see me go, it'd be rude. So I stayed, and I'm like, thank you that I did, because it turns out he showed me a graph, and I'll show you this graph here tonight that put it all together for me. And I go, it's that simple. That's the big picture. And this graph actually explains what you guys do to a certain level, at least particularly from the neurological side of things. Um, so what happens, that in school they teach, here's an activity, here's an activity, here's an activity, but you don't see how it all fits together. And that's what he put that all together for me. And so I went and trained with him for 2 weeks, and he held my hand for another 2 years. And I remember many of those calls were, "I can't do this, it's too hard, I'll never figure this out." And then other months were like, "Guess what happened, this is cool," that too. But we finally got on here. Then along the way, that was in 1990. Then since then, all these different people who showed up along the way, Keith being one, I'm a huge fan of interdisciplinary. I don't think anybody has all the answers. And I think the more people work together, the better outcome for patients. It's just that synergy that takes place with that. And I just say the head bone's connected to the toe bone, and we'll never be smart enough to fully figure all that stuff out. I think that's kind of where we are. So I kind of start off with, so I did general optometry, and I had a general practice over there. And I realized what we're doing is more unique than I thought it was. People are going, "How do you do this? Why are you doing this?" And so we, in 2019, I sold that practice so that I could focus on growing therapy. Because as my high school buddy reminds me constantly, it's like, we don't have the shelf life that we used to. So it's just we want to get, our average patient in 30 weeks will show over a 3.5 year jump on skill levels. And over 90% of our patients don't need to come back ever. That too. So I said, we need to start sharing this. So we have just started a practice in Somerset. We're going to be doing one in Northern Kentucky. We're starting a program to teach other optometrists how to do what we're doing. But we also, that was the back of the building right here. We've added all this on, in the past to grow therapy here as well. So that's kind of my mission, is spread the word. So my role goes less and less, and someone else can go, "Hey, y'all run with it and make it way bigger than, and way more advanced than what I do." Because there's some smart people out there doing these things. But just the complexity of the visual system itself, there's 1.9 million fibers coming out of each eye. Roughly 70 to 90% of the pathways in the brain are involved in vision, directly or indirectly. As you're sitting here now, 70% roughly what you process is coming from the visual system. And like the school's more like 85%, with that too. And just talking about the concussion, we'll get into this, but 70 to 90% of any acquired brain injury, stroke, or trauma will have an impact on the ambient visual system. And we're the only office in Kentucky that currently is testing and treating ambient vision. And we'll explain all that later with that too. So to me, there's 4 parts of vision. You have to get a clear image, and that's what we're all taught very well in school. Do you need glasses to see clearly, and are your eye structures healthy? And that's really important. But then after that, you have your brain that has to process what your eyes are seeing. Point, move, track, focus, understand, what is that I'm seeing? How much space and distances are between us? All those different things. And for me, vision is deriving meaning and directing action. Or think about recognize and respond. And in a nutshell, what our programs here improve the speed and accuracy with which you recognize, and speed and accuracy with which you respond. And there I am bouncing around. I will bounce tonight if you hadn't figured that already. But here, going back to get a clear image. Then you process what your eyes are seeing. You integrate with the other senses. Then you act. And literally with that model, I've not met a patient I can't say, "Here's where your problem is," and then also, "Here's what kind of therapy we need to direct that." And is it something we can do on our own, or do we need outside assistance on these different things with that too? So the other part is vision and vision skills. There's at least 17 different vision skills. I think there's more than that personally, but let's say 17, but they're all learned. And I use a simple concept I call brain dimes. I said, everybody's brain has limited resources. Everybody here, a dollar worth of dimes. That's all you have. So I go over and do this. My brain goes, where and how do I spend my 10 dimes? Over here, where and how do I spend my 10 dimes? So you all know, I mean, at birth, that vestibular system is the only one myelinated, functioning, ready to go. Everything else is basically open pathways in the brain. So you're learning to walk. This is cool. It's taking 60 cents of my brain dollar. But but it's cool, so I'm going to do it. So the brain's sitting there going, I have to create a pathway for this. And the reason being is you don't want to keep spinning those dimes over and over again. And so that's what's same with vision. And what I love about neuroplasticity, it does not matter if you're 8 or 98, your brain can rewire itself at any point in time if it's given the right information. What I don't like about neuroplasticity, you have to learn it initially. And so many patients learn it. I call the country road method. When you're little, it's like, oh, that works for I'm doing this. I can do it this way. But then you start reading books, catching balls, driving cars, and I go, I'm not very good at this. And again, that's because they've learned this method. So we teach the superhighway method, and they go, that's so much better. And then with that, they go, oh, I can do those things. And we work with special needs kids, we work with athletes up to pro level. Anywhere along the pathway, we can have programs for you. But every patient I ever see, I really have one question for, and that's, what do you need to do in your world, or what's your performance like? My question is, how's your performance match up to what you're needing to do? And if it's not, almost always there's a vision is just so pervasive in what we do. There's a lack of vision skills. It's not a lack of eyesight. So when you go to the eye doctor, they go, how you doing? And go, I'm doing fine. 2020, don't have any issues with that too. So, there's four parts. Anytime you're learning things, whether it be vision or whether it be balance, whether it be anything, there's four phases, and this is the what I said. I went to that conference in 1990, and the optometrist there showed a graph. This was the graph he showed that I go, oh, that's it. That's simple. If you look at what we do from a 10,000 foot view, this explains what we do from a 10,000 foot view. But if you look here, and if you said everything underneath this line is subconscious and everything above is conscious. Patients come into our world with jerky eye muscle movements, but they don't know it. They just know, wow, I'm not a good reader. I can't do well in soccer or whatever. And so what we're doing in therapy is giving them more feedback. And with that extra feedback, they get less jerky. And next thing you know, it's smooth and it's subconscious. One of my undergrad majors at IU was psychology. And I totally understood this concept. And what happens is anything we do well, walking, talking, riding a bike, driving a car, signing your name, there's 4 stages you're going to go through. We all start off down here unconsciously unskilled. A 3-year-old's not thinking about driving a car. They get driving age, they go, oh, I'm going to give that a try. And they hit a bike in the driveway, they clip the mailbox, they run off the edge of the road. They go, oh, well, I'm conscious of where I'm unskilled. But they practice it. They spend all their brain dimes, and they can get consciously skilled to go, I can get the car down the road now. But every one of you, probably even on the trip over here today, you go, I don't remember part of the trip. And the reason being, we can do 1, maybe 2 things consciously. We can do multiple subconsciously. And that's why we create these pathways in the brain. And kind of with our therapy and kind of your therapy, in our therapy, I know it's been pretty well established. If you go more than 3 days without practicing, the brain's not going to make a pathway. It says, I'm going to wait till you do it again. Just throw more brain dimes your way. So, but that's also, when you understand brain dimes, that explains, how come I could do it in the morning but not in the afternoon? How come I could do it Monday but not Wednesday? Oh, I was hungry, I was sleepy, I was up all night, whatever, those kind of things. It's just, that's kind of harder. Or also, I could do it. So many of our patients, like I was talking earlier, what got me started in this is bright kids not showing the rest of the world how bright they are. And in their case, they never really created those pathways. But with brain injury, they generally have them created, everything's fine, then they get disrupted. But our whole thing still is we just create an environment where their brain gets a meaningful experience. Then we have them repeat these things at set intervals and do certain activities. And then they're here on Monday, they do their home activities, they're here on the next Monday, we change their home activities, they're here, and we just kind of keep stair-stepping them up, with that too. And so this is the other thing we do. When we get to this level here, where people can do things, their scores are good, we basically load and add other activities. So you're following this well, great, now do it while you clap on beat, or now do it while you're counting by 2s or whatever. So that forces the skill into subconscious faster. And that's why our results, what's one of the reasons we're getting faster. There's the reason we're getting better results. Really, the super team over there with that too. But that's kind of that graph is kind of the overview. You can kind of think back, okay, what are you doing? I mean, not the musculoskeletal range of motion, those things not so much, but when you're working on balance, working on those things, that's really what you're doing. You're trying to create an environment where they get more feedback. I always say, trying to learn vision skills in the real world is often like trying to learn to play piano with the keyboard turned off. All we can do is turn the keyboard on. We can't practice for you. But if you'll practice, I'm 99% certain a kid coming home from the hospital will learn to walk and talk because their brain is going to go, that's helpful. I need to figure this out. I can say the same thing here. 99% certainty. If you come in and follow the protocol, you'll figure this out and your brain's go, oh, that's good. I'm going to do that. And I always tell people, this kind of applies to you guys too. Any therapy, you can almost divide into thirds. And the first third, you're going, what works for this patient? What's the aha? What really clicks for them? Middle third is where we're saying, oh, look, we're starting to make number changes, starting to get scores, improving things like this. And unfortunately, and this is one of those insurance problems, but it's just, to get things, the final third is getting it embedded. And that's why I say so often, it's like, oh, your scores are good, you're done. And if you don't get it embedded, you're going to need to come back, with that too. But if you get it embedded, then you go, cool, I can apply it to reading books, catching balls, doing whatever, those kind of things with that too. So this is a big part. The two things that I tell people, if you understand this graph here and this set of Skeffington circles here, that's our program from a 10,000 foot view. And every eye doctor, think of these as just sensory circles. And this one up in the upper right here, that's identification, or what is it? That's what every eye doctor is trained beautifully in that. What glasses do you need to see clearly? Is that image clear? And that's kind of what we're taught. But you guys relate with this more than most, like OT, PT, you get this. But this circle here is the first one we're getting is where am I? But where am I? That midline awareness there. But even when someone has an eye that kind of crosses or turns, where is this eye relative to this eye? I'm not just talking about, oh, you're sitting in the chair, but specifically, that kind of thing. And so how precise are you? And really, you guys are doing the same thing. We call J&Ds or just noticeable differences. If someone says, oh, I can tell my eye's off when it's over here. Well, by then you're seeing double. If now I can tell here. Oh, now I can tell it's here. Oh, now I can tell it's off here. Oh, and I know how to bring it back. And I know how to bring it back without spending brain dimes. Then the two eyes are working together as a team, and you'll get stereopsis or fine-tuned depth perception. But developmentally, it kind of goes around like this. We learn where am I. It starts off with just motor. These infants, just motor, so you can just kind of move. And then you go, oh, those are cool. Oh, look, I can control those. So then it's motor visual, and then it's get visual motor. What happens is the 1-year-old is going to go, by 3, they're going, got it. With that too, the vision's guiding and leading, and that's fine motor is really visual motor integration from my perspective. You can't hardly do any fine motor without eyes guiding and how they're working together, and that's where sensor integration, which you guys understand that as well or better than anybody. So that's kind of what this is talking about. So you have a where am I, where is it, and those people who trip, have bad balance, bump into the walls, that's a where am I, where is it problem, where they intersect here. Then you go, oh, but I have to see it clearly too. So you add the what is it part here. And the fourth circle he added is when I see something there, I have to go, what is that? What do I know about it? What can I tell you about it? It's a chair. Okay, well, what do I know? And same thing too, when I read a book, I'm reading the words, but I have to create the image of those things too. I mean, and the part of where I sees 20/20 is the macula. It's no bigger than a ballpoint pen opening. And so that's to keep the two eyes working together. It's like me giving you 2 laser pointers and say, hold these together everywhere we look. And that's what we're doing all day long without even thinking about it. But it generally takes us up till mid-teens to develop adult level visual skills. And so that's kind of what we're doing. So that's what Dr. Skeffington said. Vision is in what comes out of this, all these circles. And a simpler way that I always say is like for adults, our body supports our head supports our eyes, and our eyes tell us about the world out there. It's kind of what's happening, those kind of things. So the Skeffington circles, and a big part of what we do, in 2002, they discovered new cells in the retina. They're actually, last week, Duke University, their report came out, they've discovered another new cell in the retina. Still like, what does that do? Accessory, I forget what, it's AI, and I don't know why they named it that in this day and age. That's so confusing. But and if that's not bad enough, what this guy named it, First one's rods and cones. He named this one intrinsically photosensitive ganglion cell receptor. So I just call it the third receptor. But that's a huge part of our practice here. And that receptor goes to the pineal gland. And I think everybody, and of course, that's wake sleep cycle, circadian rhythms. Everybody's kind of heard don't look at screens before bed, blue light suppresses melatonin. And that's kind of that's the pathway that creates that. When people get seasonal affective disorder, that's the root cause of where that comes from. It also goes to the hypothalamus, controlling that autonomic nervous system, one of many inputs to that, not the input, but one of many inputs. So we have a lot of patients too. I mean, what happens when you're in this sympathetic storm? We're all going to go, with that too. And so you get tunnel vision. So when we go to the eye doctor, the problem is we just say, can you do the test? We don't measure how many brain dumps are you spending to do that. So can you do it all day long? Can you do it while you're doing? Can you do it and apply it to all these other things? And so that receptor responds to wavelengths of light and quantity of light, and we perceive different wavelengths as different colors. But if I'm colorblind and I go it's green and you all go it's blue, it works the same for both of us. It's the energy that wavelength has. I mean, it's absolutely amazing what light can do for our body. We've talked about red light a lot with that too, and that's the most studied light with that too. I'm a big fan. There's a lot of things I recommend with red light. But I mean, there's a book came out last year called The Light Doctor. One of the studies it was talking, it was over 4,000 healthcare workers working in the evening around fluorescent and LED lights. There was a 70% greater incidence of breast cancer in that group. And so the 495 nanometer that these lights will put out, that suppresses melatonin. And melatonin is not only a sleep hormone, but it also has anti-carcinogenic effects, with that too. So it's just, that's the theory on what's creating that. Is it also the sleep disruption? Don't know, but it's just fascinating. You go 420, which is more of a violet blue, you get the alertness without the sleep disruption. And so there's some really cool stuff going on in lighting now that's helpful. And I'm one of the, I don't care where you stand politically, I'm just glad one of the, what do you call Trump's orders, whatever they're called, with that too. One of it's like, we're bringing back incandescents. And I'm like, yes, because I had stockpiled those and I was running low personally with that too. So it is an instance, but red light will improve blood flow, cut inflammation, and stimulate mitochondrial function. Well, the incandescent has red light out there, so when you're around that, you're getting more of that thing. But ultimately, get outdoors. That's the number one thing. Just you're going to get the full spectrum of that too. And so, and you won't get too much in that now, but the role of vision in concussion, like I was telling Keith earlier, there's kind of four legs to a triangle. We've been really good on the three, taking care of the proprioceptive, the cognitive, and then also the vestibular. But it's the vision leg is often let off, that wobbly stool, so you go, oh, I'm good until I need that. And again, 70 to 90% of any acquired brain injury will have an impact on the ambient visual system. And I should probably tell you what the ambient visual system is, since that's an important part here. But the way vision system works, light hits your retina, then it gets processed by two different systems. There's an ambient vision system, where the word itself means in the background. We have no conscious awareness of that. And there's a focal visual system. And that's what every eye doctor, when we're taught in school, it's like focal visual system. What are you focusing on? What are you paying attention to? It's the eyesight part of vision with that. But the ambient basically, that's the VOR. That's basically ambient vision is what's sending that information there. But it works for balance, eye pointing, tracking, moving, precision. And that's why the gold standard now on return to play has to do with eye tracking. We can show you, we have some reports here. We can show you eye tracking devices we have and what the reports looks like that you guys would see if you sent someone over here. With that, you get that eye tracker report on how they're doing. But that's kind of like with the athletes, you go, your levels here, you want to get them back to that level. But you also, on them, you want to say, do 20 jumping jacks, give them 20 burpees. Now, let's see if you can still keep it. Are they really ready to play, or are they just like, hey, you're back for regular life duties? That's okay. But it's kind of, and from a medical legal standpoint, it's a great check the box. And you go, look, it says they're ready. That is the standard right now. Because again, how precise that has to be, that's the most precise thing we do by far. And so that's it's the first to go offline and the last to come back after there's some neurological disruption, with that too. So that's kind of so what we do on that, we have these, some of the tests we do. Um, this is the right eye test here, and it's you track a little red dot, and you're doing pursuits, saccades, and fixations is what we're doing on that, and it actually shows how they're doing. And so this, I think, is a little guy. This was him and his yeah. This was actually a 12-year-old. It's funny. He plays football every October. He's had concussions the last 2 years. I go, bubble wrap yourself this October. And so, but he had a concussion in September instead of that too. So 3 years straight he's had this. But this was his eye tracking, you know, when he kind of started off. And I think, can you all see how it's not? And what we have is here's the pursuits. This is like follow around using all six muscles, all directions. And then this is straight across and this up and down. And this is the saccades, the jump, and this is the fixation. You can kind of see that. And then this was him at his midpoint, you know. So he'd improved. He still had a lot of work to do on saccades. I wish, I don't know if we have the final. I don't think we do. But if you saw the final, I remember it. He's great. Everything's like, man, that looks perfect. You know. Then he came back again just last year. It's like, dude, you got to quit this. You know that too. But anyway, so we get everything we do is data driven. You know, everything we do is data driven. You know, with that too. But I also am very much a fan of how things are going with that too. And this is kind of a test that we do, a motor field test. We look up and say, are your eyes together, not together? This is the first brain injury patient I ever did. And the story here was he was probably 20-ish, low 20s. He had been in an accident years later, had done 10 to 12 years OT-PT at Cardinal Hill, not at KORT, of course, because or you guys would have fixed everything. But it's just, but he came in, every time he would come in, he was on a walker, he'd step, and that was him coming in, looking down and doing this. But he was moving, which he wasn't afterwards. So they'd done wonders for him. His mother asked me, will you work with him? And I said, people doing what I do are starting to do brain injury. I've not done that before. I don't know if I could help him. She said, would you try it? I said, as long as you know I'm not promising you anything. So that was what we did. And this is just like you see it. This is top, bottom, left, and right. And the black is where his left eye was, and the red is where he thought his right eye matched up with it. That was him December of 2008. This was him December of 2009, a year later. And we've had numerous of these. I keep this original one because I did not know what I was doing. What I know now versus what I knew then, it's just like, I go, how did you get better? You know, that, but that's kind of my, I keep this as a reminder to me. The magic in all this is patient's brain. With that too. Their brain knows more about itself than anybody on the planet is going to ever know about brains. We just have to provide them that information. You know, they can do this. And at this point, he wasn't even using a cane. And we have that on a regular basis. You talked about like mom, grandma, whatever, that too, that kind of thing too. And I never would have thought in optometry school, and I don't want to, oh yeah, come in, we'll get you rid of your walker. I mean, but it's amazing when you get the ambient and focal vision balance. It's like, oh, I can tell where I am in space, so I don't feel all wobbly. And with these, there's what they call a visual midline shift syndrome. When people have, you say, tell me when this is in front of your nose, right there. Well, what are they going to do? Like this? Or they're also going to be standing. Yeah, okay. They have that posture. You can kind of say, check, when's in front of your belly button? Okay, when's in front of your nose? You can kind of look at that and sort of get a feel of, well, that's why their vision's not giving the right information, you know, with that too. So this we have, I talked about the third receptor, that intrinsic photosensitive ganglion cell receptor. This is a test we do that tells me how focal and ambient vision are working together. It's a simple side vision test, peripheral vision, whatever you want to call it. But this is, again, like looking at it, right eye, left eye, top, bottom, left, and right for each one of these. And this is, I wonder for Jennifer over here. But probably 12 years ago, I said, would somebody please just make one of these? Because patients would always be going, well, what's it supposed to look like? And I said, so she did this. I go, that's good. Let's just use that as an example of what we want to see. And so you can see there's a green circle followed by a red circle, by a blue circle, by a white circle, and they both look concentric and symmetric. This is what I see all day, every day. You know, we see this. And this is actually not even a brain injury. You know, this was an 8-year-old girl who has 20/20 eyesight. She's a gymnast, she's a swimmer, she's just not a good reader. And I go, that would explain why you're not a good reader. The reason I keep this chart in my exam as a result for me, our protocols, we have patients come in once a week, then we go, here's your home activities, follow these things, and then she had 3 siblings and they're all in extracurricular activities. So trying to find, and you guys are saying, like, oh, when can we work it in to get you in the schedule? So the family gave us 2 times that would work that somebody didn't have to drop out of something, and all those were taken. Both of those were taken. And so we basically said, well, let's just start her in 3 weeks. And then it kind of hit, we could start her with light therapy at home. As a clinician, I don't care what gets you better faster. I'm going to do 1 thing, 3 things, 6 things, 2 things, 4 things. But as a researcher, you're going to do 1 thing. I was very curious when I go, oh, we've done just light therapy on her. So this was her initially. I told our therapist 3 weeks later, I said, before she does any therapy activities, retest her function. We call this a functional color field. And she had gone from this to this, you know. And so that was kind of the change that she had. And she was, saw how happy the therapist was. And she kind of goes, I want to show Dr. Graby. So I kind of came in and kind of high-fived. No, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you. But then I asked her, this little 8-year-old girl, I said, I'm just curious. I said, reading was the only problem you were having. Are you still having any problem with your reading? And she had a big old smile. And she said, oh, the words aren't moving on the page like they used to. And I'm not getting headaches. And she paused and looked at another big smile. And she goes, I think I'm remembering stuff better. So she wasn't spinning her brain down, just getting her eyes across the page. So she'd go, hey, what's the story about? Where are we going with this? Because to read a book, you have to do laser pointer, in the distance, our eyes always move together. You have to take focusing lens in your eye and keep things clear. You have to keep these together as you move across the page. Then you have to phonetically decode the words. We say the words in our head. We process them auditorily. Then we turn it into a picture or an image. And when all those things are working without any brain dimes, that's when you go, oh, wow, cool. That's like a movie in my head. You know, so that's getting, my point is doing this. And I don't know if you do much with primitive reflexes at all too, but that's looking for primitive reflex. If they have these retained reflexes, that's a big part. There's 3 or 4 of those that are really important for us with that too. And so we look at that, but taking care of this, taking care of reflexes, our results go like this. For instance, we can say, read a paragraph when you're done reading. It's going to show in real time how your right eye moves, left eye moves. As how does that compare to others your age group? You should be able to turn your eyes in minimally 35 units, turn them out 13. We should check, are they pointed together everywhere they look? So anything on the mechanics, the saccades, pursuits, the teaming, that how's that going? But then we get into these things like visual memory, visualization, visual sequential, visual memory. All these things we take for granted that if we tested everybody here, we would all have different scores, you know, on different things like that too. And then I always use the simple analogy. So many patients we see get labeled ADHD, dyslexia are the 2 biggest we see, but we have to have ICD-10 codes. You know, that's what we have to. So that, okay, that's the closest one, but that just means your intelligence levels here, your reading levels here for dyslexia. But I want to go ask 3 to 5 why questions, you know, to get to the root. What's the cause of that? Like if someone says, I don't like soccer, I would go, why? And they go, I'm afraid the ball's going to hit me in the head. Why? I can't really tell where it is. Why? Oh, because my eyes aren't giving the right information. So often these dyslexic, if that was a running condition instead of a learning condition, and we make your shoes lighter, for instance. And so what happens is I said, let's not call you a dyslexic runner until we make your shoes lighter. Then let's see if you still have if you're still dyslexic. And I think every one of those conditions, there's all these diagnoses that are there, but there is no quantifiable, objective blood test measure. It's a series of behaviors, all these series of behaviors, and that's what happens. All these different, you get auditory process order, you know, sensory process order, you know, OCD, you know, all this, and you know, I'll tell you something we have so much success with, and I don't really market for this at all. Just patients afterwards go, wow, anxiety, you know, so many patients come in and go, my anxiety's gone, you know, with that too. And it's just, and it's like, cool, tell me more. That too, that's that too. But it's just, but it is, think about 70% of what you process is now more effective. And then what happens is you go, the world's less stressful for me, so I don't perceive the world as stressful. And that's the problem. Last year, there was 4 of us in Kentucky who are board certified in vision development and neuro rehab. 2 of those retired last year, you know, and we are by far the most holistic. A lot of the others still are kind of like, well, your eye's pointing and tracking here, which is wonderful, but it's just not enough in my opinion. And that's like been there, done that. So you just kind of work up, and that's why I say we're trying to spread the word with that too. So that kind of gives you the big overview. We're constantly trying to say, how can we get the word out so people know what's going on? I so appreciate you guys coming out to take the time to learn, because we don't have an elevator talk. And I apologize it takes so long to go over what we do, but we still scratch the surface of what actually is available. There's just so many things, with that.